All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another episode of the SGGQA podcast Monday morning tech chat show. I take a week off. My whole patter is totally off, but I got a little downtime. Hopefully, everyone here has been having a lovely and wonderful holiday season. Already my New Year's resolution is to get a better chair. Welcome everybody to the stream. Welcome everybody to the podcast listeners listening to the replay crew. I appreciate you. And we're going to have a fun, casual, limping podcast back up to speed. I was way off my game this morning. I was like, oh, I've got a couple links. I do want to talk about a couple little news pieces. Let's put together a show. How do I do that? I've completely forgotten how to put together a show. So all of December essentially became pajama podcasts, just real casual, sort of off the cuff, not really planned types of shows. And I do want to get back into the swing of things. But one of the things that was really lovely about staging a couple of those episodes back to back to back was really like allowing for the chat. All of the wonderful people that are in the chat right now. I'm seeing Clay. I'm seeing TK Mabe is in the chat. Aditya Anil, Bryant, Al Sabakli, Twin Folk, Clay, Grounded Tech, Jojo the Techie. Happy New Year to you too. Frank, Grounded Tech. I'm missing some people here. Apologies. Scoop is in the chat. So we got a good crew here. This is allowing the chat to kind of help guide some of this conversation was really kind of lovely. I very much appreciate being able to kind of ramble. I love that y'all seem to follow on some of these tangents that I'll just go off on, and really trying to build good time into each podcast where we can have some of those sort of organic conversational moments when we've got a lot of tech to talk about. So really coming into the new year, one of the changes, I'm really going to try to work a little bit harder at whittling back on some of the news block, instead of having like 12 different stories in the news block where we're basically just reading the headline for each story. If there's a conversation to be had, let's really focus in on a couple key stories, and then we can kind of let some of the Q&A drive where we go after that. And TK Bay, what? TK Bay has gifted tier 1 subs to Dimitri, Ronan Otter, Muppinish, what's up Muppinish, Savaticus, and Utaku. Let's kick 2023 off with a bang. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Of course, TK Bay, my brother from another mother, who we host the Best of Our Week podcast, where TK and I are having some very serious conversations behind the scenes about what to do with YouTube channels and gadget coverage and podcasts, plural. Just absolutely one of my favorite people on the planet, and thank you for supporting the podcast and jumping in. And also just a quick shout out to JMan150, subscribed to tier 1, been subscribed for 6 months. Thank you, J-Man. Again, for both of you, the support on the show, keeping the lights on here in the Gadget Lab is always greatly appreciated. Yeah, DK coming in clutch with the New Year's gift subs. What is up? And Control Alt Clay is saying, hey from YouTube on Twitch. I love it. So yes, we've got a lot of co-streaming going on, and TK and I are, I mean, again, it looks really messy because it is really messy. We're very seriously talking about what to do with our channels and how to simplify some of this, because we're spread out all over the place. Right now, the sort of makings of a YouTube channel, the makings of a podcast, podcasting in general has gotten a bit dicier out there when you're trying to talk to companies, talk to brands, talk to hosting, just all of the pieces that have to fit together to make a good streamable show or a good downloadable show. Everything has gotten a bit trickier over the last couple of years, as you might have imagined. So, we've got a little bit to talk about. I would normally jump into a bunch of hardcore, oh, this was the housekeeping, and I did a bunch of videos and stuff. And really, for this kind of holiday season, I had some family in town for Christmas. We had a ton of rain coming into the end of the year and into New Year's. The day before yesterday, it was raining so hard our back patio flooded, which in Southern California is very concerning. It's not something we see very often, water falling from the sky. So there was just a lot going on. And already I'm kind of booked on a couple of videos that I really wanted to get a leg up on here in January for 2023. And so I didn't wrap up 2022 with the same kind of panache that I've tried in years past. Like a long time ago, I used to do like how every phone brand screwed up, individual little videos about some of the mistakes that I felt companies had made over the course of the year. I didn't feel like we needed to spell those out. 2022 was a really complicated and sort of divisive year, a controversial year in the world of technology. We do actually have a news block story talking about one of the phenomenal catastrophes of 2022 still manifested today in 2023. Um, and I've never really liked the idea of doing like best of. I think it's always kind of overly simplifying what my opinions might have been for, like best camera phone of the year. There isn't one. Best audio doesn't exist anymore. It's the Sony. Sony Xperias are the best audio phones of the year. That's the winner. It's gotten like I've got to drill down to really be honest about how I share my opinions. I've got to really draw down into very tiny, specific little granular bits. So I didn't do my normal best of. The closest I got, and this wasn't like a planned. Let me really put this together in a formatted, really interesting kind of way. It was more. I just had some feelings about how 2022 went, and I wrote them up in just an editorial, sort of a production diary, and that's why I call it a production diary. This is sort of a little less polished. I'm good at that, right? I've already got tangent chat show Clay calling me some tangent guy. I'm really good at that. This is sort of what I do on the normals. But on the patreon.com/somegadgetguy, I've got some very raw thoughts. Oh, I didn't even put my watermark up. I've completely forgotten how to do this show. Um, Wishing you the happiest of holidays and a wonderful new year. Talking about some of the key elements that I found in 2022. Talking about SoC design, audio highs and lows. So there were some really great things that happened in audio. There were some really frustrating things that happened in audio. A brief word on phone camera technology. Mobile gaming was huge. And then all of the lifestyle tech that really impressed me over the year. So for 2022, if you were really savvy in kind of grabbing some screenshots, you might have just been able to crib that article. I'm real good about making sure my paywall content stays paywalled. Oh, and Gormlord. See, this is exactly one of the tangents I wanted to get into. Gormlord is watching this in bed on his new Nreal Air glasses. That's pretty fancy. I liked hearing that a lot. Because the closest I would get to delivering like best tech of the year. I mean, I want to give a shout out. We make a lot of fun at my sort of continued insistence of working the Steam Deck into every conversation. It's like when I was a vegan, you didn't have to ask if I was a vegan because I would just tell you that I was a vegan, right? I would find ways to work it into conversations even where it didn't fit. Oh, yeah, we were talking about giving my car an oil change. Well, let me tell you about oil because when I cook with, chickpeas and quinoa, so the Steam Deck has been one of those gadgets that I work into conversations. But, and I'm so glad Gormlord brought up the Nreal Airs. This year was a combination of mobility tech and gaming tech that really rocked my socks. And this is probably the biggest section in my write-up on the Patreon, and I'm just gonna go ahead and spoil that part of it right here on the podcast. The Steam Deck rekindled a passion for my PC gaming library. Being able to move it away from my nicer gaming devices, my nicer gaming workstation, actually my workstation that I also game on, and then also the little PC that we keep behind our TV for 1080p gaming, and put this in my hands, and then that really played out well for the few times that we got to visit with family. So for Thanksgiving and for Christmas, I was able to spend some time with family, and it was great bringing a couple controllers and propping up the Steam Deck or plugging it into a TV and moving that experience in a really simple, portable, organic kind of way. You know, I'm sitting on the couch watching my mom and my daughter play TMNT Shredder's Revenge. I'm getting into Tetris showdowns with my siblings. It really did help. It really did deliver what it promised. This is a new relationship with PC gaming that I've never had before. And it reminds me of those glory days of like having a Nintendo, a Game Boy or a DS, or, you know, for those of you who are on a Switch, you know what this feels like. I've never felt that with my PC games. The closest I've ever gotten is a gaming laptop. But at the same time, a good chunk of my Steam Deck use was kind of defined by what I would plug it into. Portable monitors, extra controllers, Nreal and Rocket Air glasses, and combining a brilliant portable gaming solution with some type of alternative display and control scheme just felt like I was living 10 years in the future. I've got this Steam Deck and I can totally lean back and I can pick up a little controller and it's just off on the side and it's plugged into like a little dock, but I'm looking at a giant screened version of that game. It's not VR, it's not really AR, it's just huge projection, more reasonable controller in my hand, sitting as comfortably as I possibly could. And that, it's the total package of all of that that completely rocked my socks for lifestyle tech in 2023. The audio component of it, the visual component of it, the control of it, and the processing, all working together to deliver an experience that I'd never experienced before. Delivering experience I've never experienced before. I'm real good at the words. So that is probably as close as I would give to giving a winner to 2023. It was creating, it's because it's not an ecosystem. I think that's what I really want to get away from, is acting like devices that interoperate well but force consumer lock-in is some kind of positive. And none of these pieces were designed to really work together. I'm gaming on an Xbox controller with the Steam Deck, and most recently using the Rocket Air glasses, but also the Nreals. Like, none of those were really designed with the other components in mind. It was putting it all together that it really created something fresh. It really created something new, but all the parts worked together. It wasn't like I had to jump through a bunch of hoops and, you know, dig into Linux and install a bunch of weird software and then, do firmware on the glasses to get it to use an adapter to talk to the Steam. No, I mean, I plugged in a USB cable, I pushed a button, connected over Bluetooth, and I was gaming in a way that I'd never gamed before. So that to me was one of the highlights. That's one of the huge victories of 2022, was seeing some of this tech. And this is all crazy tech. None of this is like just go recommend it, impulse buy, it's going to be super fun, the price is totally worth it, it's for everybody's. This is still like bleeding edge, tip of the spear, premium accessories, premium components, but they're coming to a point where I feel like it's safer to recommend that experience for people who don't want to tinker a whole bunch to get stuff to work. It's not foolproof yet, but we're so close to it being literally like a foregone conclusion that you would get this and plug it into that and use it with this. And that's what I've been sort of most lit up by, most excited by, to the point where it's like this has become a very sort of personal experience, and I haven't even found a good way to convey that into like, videos that we need to talk about all this stuff, because like so much of this, I kind of feel like I'm preaching to the choir here again. So much of this is just like, yeah, I can talk about this, but it's really difficult to share. It's so personal, and that's what the next phase of tech should be. ever since using the Focals by North, those heads-up glasses, basically just putting a smartwatch in your field of view, very, very simple idea of adding augmented reality bits to your smartwatch experience. The next phase of what we're working on has to be making tech more organic, easier to ignore, and faster to interact with for those pieces that we need to interact with. Um, this felt like a big step towards that. Like gaming specifically, it felt like a big step towards kind of making this experience more personal. That means it's way harder to share. I don't like I can kind of simulate it with some screen overlays and transparency effects in DaVinci Resolve. It's not That's not what it's like. It's sort of like what it's like, and that's a clumsy way of talking about it. Well, I'm gonna take a real swig of coffee here and yeah, not harass you with that on the mic for just a sec. DJ, that's dirty. Doesn't like doing best of, proceeds to name his weekly podcast that he co hosts Best of Our Week. You got me there. That's pretty great. Pup on Tech, the Asus ROG with the Sabre ESS stack, arguably better than the Sony. Does it still have the ESS stack? I have not. I mean, TK Bay is in the chat. If someone can hit me to whether or not Asus is still using, because I don't believe the Zenfone is using the ESS stack. I'll happily swap that back and say if the ROG 6 is using an ESS stack, then yes, that would take the crown for best audio phone. But yeah, I mean, what Twin Folk is saying that I was able to use. Asus doesn't send me any gear, and genuinely, I was way too busy with content for companies that were actually sending me things. Like, I still have stuff on my desk from Techtober that I have not finished. In lieu of like proper housekeeping, I would like to shout out. It's a video that I caught this morning as I was getting set up for the show, and I felt like, yeah, I need to do a video about this too. But genuinely, she expressed perfectly well what my current feelings on content creation, on the YouTube algorithm, and on creator burnout. Shannon Morse, at Snubs, she's one of my favorite people on the planet. She's just utterly delightful to hang out with and to geek out with. And she's one of those people who she's fun and she's bubbly and she's effervescent. And she's got a Sailor Moon fixation. And everyone that you sort of see encounter her, I think underestimates her until they ask her a legit question. And then you get blindsided by the broadsword of intelligence that she wields very, sort of very stealthily. Genuinely one of the best when it comes to topics on consumer privacy and security topics. And just like I said, she's super fun to hang out with. So she put out a video. I don't know when she put it out. I caught it this morning. Just talking about her experiences over 2022. That this is like the year that she's put out the least amount of content. She's watched YouTube just savage her channel for not keeping up with the demands of the algorithm. I don't know, like, because there's so many of us in this content creation space that have been sort of beating this drum for a while, and I don't know what gets the message across. Like, the current relationship that creators have with YouTube is extremely toxic. And it's really difficult to kind of conceptualize a life outside of grind when you're really deep into the innards of working on YouTube, working on that as a platform. Especially if you don't just want to toe the line, especially if you don't want to just turn everything over to just the whims of the algorithm. If you actually have ideas that you would, or topics that you would like to talk about that kind of stray from the peak tentpole popularity, you're kind of punished for it. And she spoke very eloquently and very personally. It was kind of a, again, kind of like a diary entry that this was not an easy year for a lot of us, and a lot of us were struggling. So I would, instead of catching my channel and just watching the greatest hits and all the stuff that I've done, and well, here's a list of all the videos that I've been putting out over the last month, go check out Shannon Morse. First of all, give her a subscribe if you haven't already, because she's good people and she has a fantastic channel of content. But then also that burnout video is a great summation. A lot of us dealt with illness, a lot of us dealt with burnout, a lot of us dealt with the existential crisis of where do we go next? Is our content good enough? Are we needing to make changes? What do we do in this new, weird, hybridized digital online economy? It's heady stuff. And again, she brings a personal touch to that conversation that I think is extremely accessible and helps people sort of understand where we're at. Because again, what she's bringing forward and what she's talking about publicly is something that almost all of us are struggling with privately. When you get a bunch of YouTube tech nerds together, these are the kinds of conversations that we're having, and we're having them with frequency and regularity. It's a tricky place to be, because we don't want to burn out our audiences, like airing all of our dirty laundry, but like, you know, there are sometimes the channel just evaporates and you're like, well, where did those people go? Why aren't they making new content? What happened? We didn't know anything was wrong. What's happening? Well, a lot of stuff percolates behind the scenes. So, well, Control Alt Clay, thank you very much. You had a good year of content. Well, I appreciate you saying so, and it was definitely some highs and lows, and there were some really exciting bits, and there were some really frustrating bits, and I think, you know, all of us can kind of comment on, there were things that really worked in 2022, and even for some of the bigger, I mean, what we would call historically, when we look back on 2022, the big fails of 2022, we still saw like some incredible work being done. We still saw some incredible gadgets being released. I wrote another, just sort of one of these other sort of production diary editorials talking about the 8 Gen 1. You know, how do we go back and talk about phones that were released in the first half of 2022 when we know that better chips were coming? You know, like literally in 2022, we saw 2 better iterations of Qualcomm premium tier SoCs. And the first half of the year was marked by a number of phones that won't perform as well, but they still perform better than some of their predecessors. You know, like the nuance on that matters. Like, do we just tell people to completely avoid phones from 2021 and the first half of 2022? Like, how do we wrestle with some of that commentary or some of those conversations? The specifics matter a tremendous amount. Hassam is asking, since you reviewed them both, which one is better, the Rocket or the Nreal? So you guys want to, I'm already in tangent territory, right? What was supposed to be sort of an easier housekeeping, I'm already way off the plot. I'm way off my game. Normally I'd be finding a good way to transition to getting into our news block, but I do want to point this one out, Hassam. I did sponsored videos for both the Rocket and the Nreal. So I feel what's most fair, because we are doing a comparison, but one company has been left out of my wearable display conversation for 2022, and that, my friends, is TCL. And one Mr. TK Bay was kind enough to give me a quick loaner on the TCL wearables that we're going to be adding to that conversation. So instead of breaking down just Rocket versus Nreal, we're going to do a 3-way shootout with the 3 newest, and in my opinion, sort of the current best options for wearable headsets, wearable displays. And that'll be coming very soon in January. I've already started the sort of the outline of the script, and there is, because it's my channel, right? I do this all the time. There isn't one winner that I would recommend against, you know, above the other 2. It's more, there are subtle pros and cons to each wearable display, and you might like these if that, and you might like those if this. It's nothing but if then else statements. On my channel, I never come to a distinct conclusion. I mean, that's the spoiler, Hassam, is you won't get a straight answer out of me because I love them all. I was in this, here's a tangent. Here's a great tangent. I was listening to, I think it was one of the Science Weekly podcasts. I can't remember. It was a science podcast, and the interviewer had on sort of an expert in sort of climate change and water issues, just like palatable drinking water. It's going to be it's coming to a crisis point. Doom and gloom for 2023. There you go, folks. But one of the things he brings up is the agricultural industry and sort of the cattle industry. And part of that is also milk. Getting milk from cows takes up a substantial amount of land, takes up a substantial amount of water, and is bad for the air and the environment. So this interviewer is really trying to pin him down. Okay, well, all of these alternative milks like oat milk and almond milk and soy milk, well, which one uses the most water then? And which one's going to be the worst alternative milk? And he stops her and he says like, hey, there are some alternative milks that use more resources than others. All of them combined use a vastly less amount of water and land and resources than cattle milk. So I don't want to shoot one down, because genuinely, if we switch just a small percentage of our milk consumption over to all of these alternative milks, it would be better for the environment in total. And so I've kind of built some of my comparison off of that. I don't want to talk down the Rokid, the Nreal, or the TCL, because having more competition in this new emerging wearable display kind of tech is only going to make all the products better. If TCL and Rokid and Nreal are selling comparatively against each other, bigger companies are going to get interested. Not that they're not big companies. TCL is a pretty big company, but this is a tiny division of TCL making this product. But more, imagine Samsung getting interested in playing in this space. It's not like Samsung doesn't make some great displays. Micro OLEDs from Samsung would probably do well in this space. They're not going to get into this space until other companies prove you can make money on it first. And so right now, this is so fresh and this is so exciting to me. I'm finding like the kid in the candy store joy with all of them. I don't want to talk down any of them. I don't want to say, hey, don't buy this, because I want you to find a flavor that really fits what you want, and then that'll bring more interest to the segment in general. And when there's more interest in that in total, we'll get more options to play with, we'll get better competition, we'll see companies iterate on this even more, hopefully reduce some of the weight, improve some of the power efficiency, get some of the brightness for the display so that it can compete better with ambient light. All of those little things that we want to see won't happen if only one company wins, and that's where the evolution of this product stops. So, um, happy housekeeping tangent. And Raymond, first time watching on my Pixel 7 Pro, congrats on getting your new Pixel 7 Pro. JMX Warrior saying, hey, hey. Marilyn saying good morning. Everyone say good morning to Marilyn. I'm going to take another quick sip of coffee. DTNL Tech is personal one. I attach my identity to a multi-million-dollar OEMs that couldn't care two hoots about me after they get my hard-earned money. Oh, so true. So true. Gormlord. Speaking of gaming, for anyone interested, I recently discovered a flawless Android port of Hollow Knight. I could be about that, man. I might have to pick your brain on that. I got another question I need to reply on the Patreon, just talking about all of the sort of improvements to Android gaming that we've seen over the last couple years. Hold on, let me catch up with the chat because I'm way off. Oh no! ER1980, I just noticed Tim Schofield's YouTube account has been hacked. Oh, that sucks. Hopefully he is of a tier where YouTube tech support will actually help him. is he's a pretty big deal, and that would be bad for them if if that got messed up. Yep, Gormlord. It is incredibly difficult to get a handle. Gormlord writes, it's really hard to get an idea of what these glasses are like from a video, though. It's tough. I keep telling you, like, I'm showing you something that feels like it sort of represents what this is like. Until you put them on your face, you can't really talk about it. AR glasses. If you think about the people's first experiences with VR, you kind of know what VR is, and then you put a headset on someone's face and you have them swing some lightsabers around in Beat Saber, and it blows their mind. Again, it's an experience that they don't have a grounding element. So you see it from the outside and you see someone wagging controllers around and they look like a total doofus and you're like, yeah, okay, VR, whatever. It's probably not that cool. But then you put it on your face and like, oh my gosh, I'm a Jedi and I'm totally slashing these boxes apart. That's kind of the difference. That's sort of the separation that I even have with wearable displays. I can tell people what it's like, and then I put the glasses on their face and they know what I described, and then they see it and it's a, oh, every single time. I live in a family where both of my siblings have PhDs in advanced optical physics and engineering. I'm the slow one in the family because I played with audio. These are people that have done extensive work in research. My dad comes from the same discipline too: engineering, mathematics, optical science. And they have played with like laser light systems that they probably can't even really describe to me or talk about for fear of, like, breaking NDAs and governments being interested in some of the topics of research and study that they've worked on. Something as simple as little micro OLEDs with birdbath optics, and I put it on their face and they've never seen anything like it before. That's the kind of difference that we're working with. That the difference between what I can describe with words and kind of show you in a video versus really putting the glasses on someone's face. It's incredible. Oh, damn. Tim's channel is already changed to that Tesla coin scam. I hope it gets sorted soon. That's awful. That's terrible. Again, I have to believe that Tim Schofield is going to be a big enough deal and is going to be able to make enough noise quickly enough that YouTube tech support will actually help him out. But it's just a shame that it doesn't. Again, something like that should not have happened, and that's a bummer. And hopefully, like, everyone here would hope that it gets worked out soon. Brian Glaze, I played VR at a store here in SoCal and I was amazed. So fun. And again, fingers crossed that 2023 we can kind of see some more baby steps in improving the VR marketplace too. I was at Newegg during kind of the peak of HTC versus Oculus, just as the Steam, the Valve Index was getting announced and released, and there was all this excitement over the potential of VR. And yeah, you needed a Windows mixed reality. I still have an MR headset over in my closet. You had to put up satellites in your room and, configure sensors and PlayStation VR, and there was all this hype and buzz, and it kind of plateaued. And so now there's this little core component of VR that's still, very interesting and people are very excited about, but I still want to find what's that next step that can make it a bit broader of a consumer tech? Because it wasn't just price. Having an Oculus Quest come in at a ridiculously low price, because again, you had to do business with Facebook, didn't really seem to move the needle as much as I think a lot of us were hoping. So now what's going to get folks lit up about that again? It's going to be really difficult. I don't think it's let's make an Oculus for Zoom calls for board meetings and so you can do your work in the metaverse. Isn't it? That's not it. Oh, 2 Turbo. Absolutely. I try to show VR to as many people as possible because hearing that first reaction is always great. Yeah, it's wonderful. Like, sadly, an aunt of mine passed away, but when I was using my Razer gaming laptop and that Windows mixed reality, her husband was super into Star Wars. Like he's just diehard Star Wars nut. She's really into like period dramas, you know, like if there's a new movie coming out about like a Jane Austen story, she's all about it. And so I'm firing a Beat Saber. I think Beat Saber is still one of the best ambassadors for VR because it's a very simple mechanic that is very nuanced and complicated to master. You can start really easily. The music's really fun. The gameplay is kind of fun, but you know to get good is a little bit trickier. So he fires on the headset and he scrubs out of the first mission at the lowest setting like 4 times in a row. He's like, okay, yeah, that's kind of cool. And I put the headset on my aunt and she demolishes the first mission, the first level, again on easy, but with no prior experience to any of this. And then someone makes the crack, like, "Oh hey, I guess we know who the real Jedi in the family is." And my uncle got maybe not funny mad, like maybe actual mad. And it's again through that experience was this little, you know, my old busted gaming laptop on a Windows mixed reality headset, and it was kind of awesome. It was kind of great. Oh, Gormlord, I appreciate you saying that, man. Not just saying it, your edited video representation was the best of all the reviews that I watched. I really struggled with how to show that off. It is not easy, but at least just for the static view, you can kind of do an overlay and transparency, and it looks sort of like that. But I really struggled. Like, I am not a good enough editor, especially not with like plugins and motion graphics and stuff like that to pull this off well. So it was really tricky to try and show that off. Why don't we switch gears? We have a couple of news block stories. It's 9:40. That's 40 minutes of housekeeping there. But at least we can kind of chat out some of the stories that are already kicking off 2023 that I think we should keep an eye on. Nothing is ever a finished, this is the completion of that story. And I feel in good company here where a number of the folks that respond to the show, that leave comments on sort of, you know, like either on my website, somegadgetguy.com, on the YouTubes, or have left reviews. One of the trickiest things is like not just belching out a headline and then moving on the next week. I think we've learned anything from 2020 to now, it's that if we don't keep an eye on this stuff, it very quickly spirals out of anyone's control. And we're pretty often right. Again, through the conversations that I've been having here in chats like these with fine folks like you who are very clever, you know, we had a bad feeling on misinformation campaigns that led to the destruction of 5G towers. We had pretty bad feelings on Facebook and Twitter being utilized to spread political disinformation. We've had we've been on the pulse. We've had pretty good feelings about sort of the issues facing content creation, monetization, and distribution of content. I'm sure we've got some complicated feelings on the rise of AI art. I tried to abbreviate that to ART. You know, when we've had these conversations, I don't feel we've been typically wrong. And it's through that kind of conversation and debate. One of the reasons why I like making this a live Q&A is it kind of also forces me to really think about my position on stuff. And when my position is challenged, that's actually a good thing. You know, I've had to really sit back and think like, oh, why do I feel the way that I do? No, it's the kids who are wrong. but, but I do appreciate people trying to push that kind of stuff. Oh, Aditya, that is very kind. The biggest reason why I find your content so good is because you don't feign objectivity. You share your experiences with tech. You share how tech helped make a core memory with family members. The VR lightsaber story, how it helped capture core memories, your LGV20, but it makes the tech feel human. I appreciate that in your work, man. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you. And that goes for everybody who's in this chat and who's listening to this right now. Let me get this out of the way here. Whew. Trio of stories. We just want to highlight them. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on them, but all of the links that we're talking about will be shared on my website, somegadgetguy.com. I believe I've also like they work well, but I have like a little podcast page too. I host through Pinecast, but if there is like a standalone audio version, and you can get the links there also. Um, Excuse me. Oh, that's weird. Apparently on Twitch, if you try to type some gadget guy, it censors some. Huh. Who knew? Maybe that's one of the reasons why I don't show up in search so great. All right. First up, this isn't the completion of a journey. We too frequently kind of get stuck on, well, this was the topic. The topic was net neutrality. And then this thing happened. I guess net neutrality is done. We've decided. That is never the completion of a journey. And the sum, the sum total of our conversations can't hinge on one headline. So, coming by way of Ars Technica, written up by Andrew Cunningham, New York governor signs modified right to repair bill at the last minute. Let me get this right here. New York State Governor Kathy Hochul has signed the Digital Fair Repair Act into law months after it had been passed both chambers of the state's legislature with overwhelming bipartisan majorities. The bill had originally passed in June, but was only formally sent to Hochul's desk earlier this month. The governor had until midnight on December 28th to sign the bill, veto it, or allow it to pass into law without her signature. So frustrating the way our political process works. But here, I want to show this. It's been heavily modified, and we're not, like I said, I feel we should be getting more for all of the effort it took to get this bill approved. Most notably, only devices manufactured and sold in New York on or after July 1st, 2023 will be required to meet the law's requirements, excluding all currently extant products, the ones people already own that they might conceivably want to repair at some point down the line. Quote, business to business and business to government equipment that isn't sold to consumers is also excluded. And manufacturers won't be required to provide passwords or other tools for circumventing device security lockouts. On balance, probably good for anti-theft features that Apple and other manufacturers offer for stolen phones, but bad for people locked out of their own otherwise functional devices because they've forgotten their password or can't track down a recovery key. We have so much more work, so much more to do. Things like the mountain of e-waste caused by iCloud lockout. Old phones, old tablets, old computers, and they could be perfectly serviceable functional machines. They could be going to schools or to homeless shelters or to any other realm of tech that needs some type of influx of machine. Nope, can't do it. Can't do it. There was an iCloud password on there, and you've tried to unlock it too many times, and it's totally bricked. Got to buy a new one. That kind of, like, there needs to be a tech statute of limitations, right? Like, okay, this is like a 4-year-old iPad. Can we please give it to a kid who needs help? It works. Find a method for making this happen at some point. Especially if the owner of the iPad is like, yeah, I've had this thing for years. It was in a drawer. No one used it for a while. We can't remember how to unlock it. What can we do? And Apple saying nothing is insufficient. Like, that is not an appropriate reaction. Then also the timing on this really sucks. Is that we're going to go into July of this year before we'll start keeping track of devices. Like, again, it's such a good first step. We have a right to repair bill signed in New York State. That's awesome. I feel like this should have hit so much harder. Oh yeah, hold on. I've got to highlight this here too. I'm way behind on the chat. Sorry, hold on. I'm catching up. Oh, cool. Hochul, not Hochul. I've got that totally wrong, JGJ. I have no idea how to pronounce the governor's name in New York. I've only seen it written. I actually haven't heard it said. Flying squirrel. This absolutely sucks for farmers. Very true, especially business to business machinery. That's one of the main reasons why we're fighting for right to repair and why this industry, our tech industry, has gotten so interested in this conversation. And JGJ, I saw a few streams from Rossman regarding this, and he moved from New York to Texas. I really wish he hadn't moved to Texas. I totally understand why he left New York. But I feel a lot of these folks who are like, yeah, well, the oppressive governments and the taxes and this and that, so many of them, they get to Texas and you're like, you know, sometimes that like infrastructure and that regulation isn't necessarily a bad thing for the businesses that are looking to move around. He probably would have been just as frustrated here in California because I find a lot of aspects of living in California frustrating. But it's still like this notion that Texas is this like this land of business freedom when they struggle to keep the power on when there's iffy weather. You know, sometimes you really do want good regulators and good taxes and good infrastructure paid for appropriately. But no, I totally appreciated why he left, especially because he got another audit. It wasn't stuff like this. He didn't leave New York because they signed a watered down right to repair bill act. He left New York because like he got like a third audit on his business where they discovered, what was it? It was something ridiculous. Like his tax filing was off by 0.1% of his yearly revenue. And you're like, you threatened my business, you threatened levying of fines that would have put me out of business. You were trying to extract significantly more money from me for paying my taxes. And then when we finally finished the entire audit, he was off by 0.1% in what the state felt was owed to them. And you're like, yeah, I'd leave. I would totally leave New York if that's what the reaction was. And ER 1980, absolutely a huge shout out. Folks like Hugh Jeffries. Not folks like Hugh Jeffries, start with Hugh Jeffries. Start with Louis Rossman. Those two have provided more education for me on these types of topics like serializing parts so that you can't repair your own iPhone, for device lockout like iCloud lockout, and then also for just the right to repair topic in general. Start with Hugh Jeffries. Like it's some of the best content on YouTube, and unfortunately he's sort of beholden to the same algorithms that we all are. If he does a repair video on like a Moto, it gets like 0 traffic. But if he does a repair video on an iPhone, he gets 1 million views. Like, that's not fair. I cannot believe the people who subscribe to Hugh Jeffries and who understand what his channel is about only care about iPhones. You go to Hugh Jeffries because you get some of the best detailed, granular, and clean white room disassembly, reassembly conversations about maintaining gadgets, owning your gadgets, and fixing them over time. Every one of his videos should be doing way better, not just the videos that have the best SEO keywords in the title. It's not fair. Oh, I mean, there are all kinds of those frustrating things. Who is it? Septian is saying, I saw a video where an iPhone that was on an older version of iOS threw up activation lock errors. I should really go back and double check my, the only museum piece iPhone I have is the original iPhone SE. One of the very last phones that still had a headphone jack, my all-time favorite form factor for the iPhone. I should charge it up and see if it still works. I might be locked out of that iPhone, and that would make me crazy sad. Not like I'd really be able to use it, but I have like a shelf of museum phones, and there are so few Apple products that I feel I'm interested in adding to that list. And Gormlord, yeah, we've seen them. We've all seen them. The pictures of storage bins of fully functional but locked iPads is absolutely disgusting. And George Hayes, statute of limitations is a great idea. Again, I am delivering something that I think we would all come up with. Like if you had like a 4-year-old MacBook and it was somehow locked up, and you would say, okay, well, reasonably, this thing is old enough. We should be able to find some way of cracking it. Implementing that is not easy. I'm delivering very casually an off the cuff idea that I think a lot of us could agree with. How you would really put that into practice is absolutely a challenge. And I completely appreciate where Apple's security policy started, but now it's becoming a consumer detriment to making all of this additional waste. So we've got to start the conversation of how do we fix that? How do we address it? How do we make this better? How do we get functional technology into people's hands, even if it doesn't necessarily mean that Apple makes more money? And that's a component of our capitalistic society, blah, 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 soapbox, communist, like whatever we want to call socialism. But we're making garbage out of rare earth elements and toxic materials, and this stuff could still be working. Literally, in this chat right now, we all probably have a drawer of defunct technology that could change someone's life, that could radically improve someone's life. A family member, a friend, a total stranger, someone homeless, someone in a shelter. I have a drawer full of tech here that I'm finally working out of, like I'm working off, like I'm kind of done with it, and I'm gonna go and take it to a shelter. I'm gonna make sure I've cleared out every single device, and I'm gonna drop off a box and say, please share. Someone needs it. I know some of the teachers at my daughter's school, they don't need fancy stuff. They probably just need a couple extra little bits and pieces to help school work. I'm gonna go and take a crate of stuff over for them to play with. I feel like, Bill Murray at the end of Scrooged, like, here, eat, stay warm, be connected. So how we get there is going to be very, very messy, but that doesn't mean we don't do it. That means we've got to debate it and we've got to figure it out, because it's just not okay to poison the planet for future generations off stuff that could help people right now, that could help people today. Septian Hugh Jeffries is my spirit animal. He should be all of our spirit animals. Guys like Hugh Jeffries, Louis Rossmann, Dr. Ian Cutress from Tech Potato, Gary Explains. Like, we could remake Tech YouTube and make it like those guys. Snubs, you want better like security conversations? I love it. I love that. That is what we should aspire to be. That's what I aspired. When I grow up, I want to be like an amalgamation of Snubs, Gary Explains, Tech Potato, Hugh Jeffries, Tech Tablets. Just want to mash them all up into one, and maybe that's what I'll be when I'm finally grown up. It's so good. So moving on, our next topic here for the news block. Again, just something for us to keep an eye on. This is going to be a continuing conversation with companies that operate around the globe and how we interact with them here in the United States. Coming by way of Reuters, written up by Moira Warburton. Wow, that is on my list of names that will immediately trigger my stutter. Moira Warburton. I have to force that name. That's terrible. Apologies to Ms. Warburton. U.S. House administration arm bans TikTok on official devices. The popular Chinese video app TikTok has been banned from all U.S. House of Representatives managed devices, according to the House's administration arm, mimicking a law soon to go into effect banning the app from U.S. government devices. The app is considered, quote, a high risk due to a number of security issues, the House's chief administration officer said in a message sent to all lawmakers and staff on Tuesday, and must be deleted from all devices managed by the House. So we know we've got lawmakers that are trying to make an easy target out of TikTok. I have very complicated feelings about sort of the state of social media in general. But given how data is collected, disseminated, stored, and tracked, I can kind of understand why you wouldn't want, genuinely, you wouldn't want any social media. But again, the subtle differences between Facebook being a terrible service. We can all agree on this, right? Facebook and Twitter have become dumpster fires. But Facebook's service is still built around trying to build a bucket of data on you that then they can sell patterns and behaviors to advertisers. It doesn't work. Like, of all the companies that make a good bucket, Google makes a good bucket. Apple is making a better bucket. Apple's becoming another advertising service like every other social media service. You just get to pay more for your iPhone to then get ads served to you because Apple wants that money too. But Facebook is trying to make a bucket. It's just a part of their business model that it leaks like crazy. TikTok really isn't trying to make a bucket, they're trying to make a funnel. And that subtle distinction and difference, to me, it would make a lot of sense that if you worked with any privileged, private, sensitive, or top secret information, you don't want a social media video app that skims all of the information on your phone, skims all of the contacts on your phone, seems to dig right into whatever keyboard traffic. It's almost like installing a keylogger. Like, Facebook is awful, but if you work in government or in the military, you definitely don't want the app that's going to funnel everything to a government that we might be in sort of contentious dealings with. It's a very good Trojan horse service. I'm not one to just, fall in line jingoistically and be a xenophobe about, oh, those Chinese phones are doing all this bad stuff. I feel like there we can track, if you have a Chinese built phone, what is it really doing? You can monitor the data on a phone and see where it goes. And especially when phones are built to comply with EU regulations, I find it less likely that it's doing something bad. But TikTok hasn't been shy about all of the things that its app digs into on your device and all of the trends that it follows on your device and all of the personal identifying information that gets sent directly back to the developers of the app. Like, that's been pretty clear. So I'm not feeling too angsty. And also, I'm not on TikTok, so it's not like I have a horse in this race. But I'm not feeling too angsty about lawmakers being denied TikTok. I kind of feel lawmakers shouldn't be using a platform like that. Like, it's already bad enough that we treat Twitter like it's got relevance in that kind of public square conversation. I feel like if lawmakers really wanted to make sort of a free speech, First Amendment zone of public communications, then they should be looking at NPR or maybe something kind of like a C-SPAN for the internet. Not, we can put things on YouTube and we can put things on Twitter and we can put things on Facebook. Like, you've got the budgets, you've got the money, you have my taxpayer dollars, make an NPR app. Not sort of a contracted, we just stream audio from NPR, like, make an NPR social media service. You could do it. And then you wouldn't have, oh, my watch my watch just rebooted. So I dropped my TicWatch the other day and I think I broke it. So now it's being real weird. It might interrupt the podcast again. My apologies. So anyway, I don't feel too bad about denying lawmakers TikTok. Like, that's probably good. See, Carl, I would have assumed. Carl says, wait, apps like these aren't already blocked on government devices they are providing to their employees? I thought this was already a thing. It should have already been a thing. Like, this shouldn't have been, like, yeah, this absolutely should have been a thing. Again, I want to be clear. Social media in general can be terrible for a lot of reasons, but TikTok is awful for so many reasons, says Gormlord. I feel like we need to appropriately bridge the conversation of, like, well, this is bad, But yeah, we need to make sure people kind of understand some of the subtle differences in why it's bad. Like I feel Facebook is bad, sure, for different reasons than I feel TikTok is bad, and for different reasons than I feel Twitter is bad. Oh no. Yeah, I really did kill my tick watch. I was so bummed. I was packing up last night. I had a whole like armful. Like I had my Steam Deck and a pair of headphones, and my watch was just sort of sitting on the side table. And I pick it all up, and it slips directly out of my hands, and it lands on hard tile from like almost neck height because of how I was bundling everything. And now one of the buttons is super squishy, and it worked this morning, but now it's going through a boot loop. So I might need to replace my TicWatch Pro. Really, my TicWatch Ultra, excuse me. I'm really sad about that. I'm gonna throw you on the floor because you're just gonna boot loop for a while, and I gotta wait until the battery just dies. While I wait for the battery to die, I'm gonna take another drink of coffee. Twin folk, they don't even know how to use it in the first place. And flying squirrel, see, I was on board this, man. BlackBerry assumed that governments and companies wanted their employees to use secure devices. Turns out they were wrong. The business on that just didn't seem to work out. ER 1980, like absolutely. Here's a scenario: Twitter brings back Vine or something similar, and then TikTok gets banned, and then Twitter, YouTube, Instagram will fight to pick up the viewership and the creators. You know, that's what they're lobbying for. But it's also one of the things that just kills me because I don't make disposable short form content. I'm not good at it. I don't have fun with it. Like, oh, I put together this video and I just put it out there, and maybe it gets some views or maybe it gets none. I don't know. I try to make stuff that even when it doesn't hit, like a couple months later, it'll still keep getting traffic. And that's been like the whole year of mine this last year was miserable first day viewings. Like none of my videos hit this year, but many of them built traffic over time. And especially as like some of the international devices started like shipping out later in the year, I got like a surge of viewership on like my Pixel 6a rant video got a huge boost in December. So I feel a lot of people got Pixel 6As this December for the holidays because I got a ton of traffic on those videos. That's what I've always been interested in making. Something that you could kind of come back to later and go, like, oh, okay, I see what this guy was rambling about. I get it now. I've always wanted to start a conversation, not finish. I don't want to be the last word in a conversation. Oh, Barry. Juan, why should I monitor and actually find out what my phone is doing? Shouldn't I just blindly say that my Chinese phones are spying on me because what is it that we're saying about OnePlus? Because OnePlus is busted, or the bust plus, or I've already forgotten like how we're supposed to be making fun of Chinese phones right now. But you know, I personally sort of fit into a category where my most sensitive information I don't keep on my Xiaomi 12s Ultra because I haven't flashed it. It's running a localized Chinese ROM, and you have to agree to the terms and conditions of how that device is meant to operate with servers that are locally managed in China. For my Xiaomi's that are international phones, I don't have the same concerns. And if you read through the terms of service, like they have to comply with GDPR. And I feel like if I were to discover that a Xiaomi phone was not complying with EU regulations, would be really bad for Xiaomi. So, you know, we all have to admit that smartphones are these leaky devices. And as soon as you install web communication on them, they get leakier. And your data goes to all these different places that you don't know. It's not the country of origin, it's how that manufacturer has to play ball with the regulators from where that device should be sold. And I've not had any experiences with my BBK branded phones or my BBK company phones and my Xiaomi company phones in anything that would have been concerning to me. It's not that they're Chinese, it's that they were built to be operated in different regions. Is that region a place that I would feel comfortable giving my data? I have never used a phone that was destined for Russia. I would have some concerns about what's going on with my data on a phone that was built to be sold in Russia. And that's where I feel we can make those sort of distinctions. I know I'm splitting hairs, but I feel like just that sliver of nuance helps if you're trying your best to protect your data and your privacy. Bust Plus 10T and Dumb Plus. OnePlus is the bust of the year for 2022, apparently. OnePlus, more like one bust, am I right? More like -1, more like they settled. Twinfolk is killing it right now. So hold on. I have my OnePlus 10 Pro, my OnePlus 10 Pro, and I've just been kind of picking this phone up a bit because I have the iQOO 11, and just been going back and forth, like the OnePlus that launched at the beginning of 2022 versus the iQOO that launched at the end of 2022, and just we've come a long way. There are definitely some fun things to talk about. We're going to chat about that OnePlus 11 leak here in just a bit. I've got one more quick story. It's just really funny, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. Hold on, let me pull this back up here. So Twitter sued for failing to pay rent of San Francisco office. Twitter has not paid rent on its headquarters or any of its other global offices in weeks, the New York Times reported on December 13th. So this originally came from the New York Times. I found it first on ndtv.com, written up by Robert Burnson. And I believe this is Robert Burnson of Bloomberg. The landlord, oh no, don't do that. Okay, the landlord, oh no, stop playing that video. The landlord, Columbia Rate, 650 California LLC, says it notified Twitter on December 16th that it would be in default on its lease for the 30th floor of the Hartford building in 5 days unless the rent was paid. The tenant failed to comply. Columbia Rate said it in the complaint filed Thursday in state court in San Francisco. So, if you're a billionaire, also we should point out Elon Musk now holds the record for most value lost by a billionaire. He's down $200 billion over the last, I think it's the last 2 years, where he was like the richest man in the world. Oh my gosh, he's such a quirky genius. And then he started talking out loud and people were like, oh no, he's just a jerk. So he's down 200 billion. And now, because again, if you're a billionaire and you're taking lessons from sort of shady grifters like our former president Donald Trump, the best thing you can do is just not pay any of your bills. You kind of default on your obligations, but that money is so huge that the companies don't just like, okay, well, I guess we'll wash our hands of hundreds of millions of dollars. They try to settle. And when they settle, they'll settle for a lot less money. And then you look like some kind of money-saving genius, when really you're just a grifter. You're just committing fraud. If I could commit that kind of fraud, we'd be talking about thousands of dollars. I can't commit that kind of fraud. If I defraud a company for a couple grand, I'm going to jail. Like, that's easy. That is so quick. Our justice system totally understands thousands of dollars of fraud, an individual versus a company. I don't have those kinds of protections. No bank is interested in supporting my thousands of dollars of fraud. But if I could somehow get my hands on a loan for a couple billion, well, the bank's not going to want to just let that go. So, now we have a different conversation. It's okay. It's like a total building and like a Twitter headquarters in San Francisco. Well, we need to make some kind of other arrangement. It's all so gross. I feel like if I could get thrown in jail for missing rent, like I could be forced into default. I could, if I didn't pay my obligations to my landlord, and then eventually you could get to a point where you're just literally thrown in jail for not paying this money. So let's say I'm totally making up numbers here. This isn't what it's like, but let's say I totally breach a contract. It was 10 grand and that throws me in prison for 6 months. I feel for every 10 grand that I would have been in prison for 6 months, Elon Musk should also have to serve 6 months in jail for every 10 grand. I feel it should scale. I feel it should be a linear, not like a logarithmic. I don't want to be punitive, but it should be a linear arrangement that also applies to billionaires. So if I defraud for 10 grand and that's 6 months in jail, and they defraud for 10 million, well, we should add the same number of zeros to the prison term as well. And I feel if a billionaire was looking at like 6,000 months in jail, they might change some of their business practices. They might be encouraged to explore some alternatives to how they currently exploit the system that they operate within. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll see anything like that anytime soon. Oh, Septian, that's not it at all. Elon lost $200 billion. He's a poor like me. No, I think his valuation is still something like 50 billion. So Elon Musk poor is still a quantity of wealth that we will never attain fairly in multiple lifetimes. So again, it's he can lose $200 billion and his daily quality of life will not change one iota. But hopefully, if he continues to lose other people's money and shareholder money, that eventually he won't be able to impact my life the way that he has been able to do over this last year to disastrous consequences. I really just want a world where I can be left alone, where Elon Musk cannot bother me. That's all I want. I don't even care about like any kind of karmic justice or retribution at this point. I just want Elon Musk to leave me alone. And that includes some of the services that I like to use. Unfortunately, he's already destroyed the service that I like to use that he currently owns, and it's just really not pretty. I've got to turn my mug up hotter. My coffee is getting room temperature and it's not as good. Oh yeah, Barry Johnson. We point out BS in everything. Elon is universally praised for pulling fraudulent stunts where if you and I were to do it, his same base would call us thieves. And he's got an army of sycophants that are going to be, see, he's a clever businessman. He was overpaying for the Twitter headquarters. No, he had an obligation. He signed on to supporting these contracts. He walked into this business deal. He's pulling the plug on stuff. Uh, he should be facing consequences for those legal agreements. Bryant, justice is blind. But justice definitely can feel the stack of cash in its hand. And if it's a big stack of cash, then justice comes to a different conclusion. So yeah, it's great. Oh, Raymond. So I'm not using any of my merch right now. This is a battery operated heating mug. It's got like a little coil charger on the bottom. What I need to do is actually reach out to this company and see if I can maybe do a limited edition. Like get like some screens on it, screened graphics on it, a logo on it, something, but turn this into a digital megapixel mug. Actually, now that I've said that out loud, I really should reach out to that company and see if they can do it. That's a very good point, Raymond. I am terrible at merch. All right, so every podcast has a subreddit. My podcast is no exception. I want to do something a little different. Usually, when I highlight reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles, I'm pointing out just what the subreddit is about. It's not a me subreddit. It's a place where we can share content that we all feel deserves more attention. Again, we can circumvent the YouTube algorithm, the Facebook algorithm, the Twitter algorithms, Instagram. We can be the algorithm that is highlighting good work from content creators that need more eyeballs on their stuff. And if we can build up a little community of that, then we can amplify our own voices in supporting the people that we enjoy, the people that we care about. Normally I would go over the last week, but really I didn't do a subreddit plug throughout most of December. And for anything that we want to do as a year-end recap, I kind of want to go over some of the best posts of 2022. So let me click this out of the way here. And this is reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. And I'm going to go to top, and I'm going to go top this year. And number one, I didn't even upvote it. I'm going to upvote it right now. Using the Mi 11 Ultra as a Fuji X100F substitute. And it's someone, user Alyosha82, sharing some street photography at night from the Mi 11 Ultra. This was posted 11 months ago, and it's some stunning landscape and low light photography. This was the number one upvoted post on Glowing Rectangles. 43 upvotes. So right now there are 40 people concurrently watching. Oh, I didn't even have the screen set. Sorry, I had the screen set too low. Here, I can go back and reshare those links while I talk about the rest of this. This is 43 upvotes. Right now, there are 40 people watching the show. This is a tiny little community, but these are passionate people who like to share content from content creators. Literally, if everyone went right now who is watching this and upvoted a post on Glowing Rectangles, you would probably and dramatically shift the popularity of posts for next year, for 2023. You could do that right now. That's literally the scale that we're operating in. If you can't immediately create an insanely popular audience on a social media site, then you've got to grow it real grassroots, user by user by user. There are some weeks on the subreddit where we might only have one new member, one new subscriber to the subreddit. If you share the subreddit, you can bring more people to the fold. If you participate, you can bring more people to the fold. And I think this is a mission that we all say we care about, but then we just go to youtube.com and we get lazy. And that's fine. I'm not saying you have to work, but if you want to continue getting gooder content from content creators and you're frustrated with the current sort of zeitgeist, this current meta of social media, then you need to change your behavior in what you seek out and consume. Right now, there are 2,600 people on reddit.com/r/glowingrectangles, but the participation is really low. So the number two post, 5 months ago from Ann Murku, I don't know how you pronounce that. Modern flagship smartphone starter pack. Get rid of the SD card slot, get rid of the replaceable battery, get rid of the headphone jack, and make sure the back glass is super fragile. This was cross-posted from the starter packs subreddit with 4 million members, and it got 38 upvotes. The number 3 post of the year was the Alternative Phone Brand Elimination Challenge, and who had the strongest year in 2021. This is a little game that I played at the beginning of 2022 where I took Apple and Samsung out of the equation because they always end up topping the list. The best phones of the year were the Sam Apples. So I cut them out. Let's talk about any other phone brand in 2021. And I made up a whole bracket. And then every day we eliminated one phone brand from that bracket. And we eventually whittled it all the way down. And the company that had the best year of 2021, as voted on in 2022, was the Sony Xperia. So that's our number 3. That was the 3rd highest voted post on Glowing Rectangles. There are tons of just other ones. Like I have just a picture of an old Huawei phone running multiple apps on a portable display. Because, like if you have a super powerful iPad, you can only run like 8 apps at a time, which is dumb. Because Apple keeps telling us that iPads are super powerful, but I have a Huawei Mate 10 that can keep more software running at a time than a current bleeding edge iPad. My Pixel 6a rant was voted pretty high. Someone posted this really cool mod of an LG Wing, a clear glass LG Wing. So that was posted to the LG Wing subreddit, but then that was cross-posted over to Glowing Rectangles. That got a lot of traffic. Barry Johnson's Vivo X80 Pro 2-week FAQ. This is in our top 10 of posts from the year, alongside my Xperia 5. And then someone did a photo showdown. Who is this? Mitchell Millennial, 26,000 subscribers, did a showdown for photography and people of color, especially people with darker skin, between a Pixel 6 and a Galaxy S20 FE. And like, this was a really good showdown. This kind of helps conceptualize, this kind of helps drive a conversation about what is it that you want in a product. You know, oh, well, say they say Samsungs have the bestest cameras. No, they don't have the bestest cameras. It is so much more nuanced than just, I took a picture and it had good colors. Like, being able to properly expose for different situations and for different people and better portraiture, especially if you have darker skin. I just did a comparison between the Pixel 7 Pro and the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Shaka Armstrong over at iMore reached out and just shared a folder full of photos comparing those two phones in dark conditions and in bright conditions. And it's really startling how bad Apple's image processing is, and where Google's like contrasty sharpening and structure effect is really effective in making a better image in a sort of off the cuff, candid kind of shot. So those conversations are really difficult for people to wrap their brains around because the mass media of marketing is telling you Samsung is the best, Apple is the best, and there's nothing to back it up. There's no metric there. Best camera? Are you kidding me? There is no best camera. There are various pros and cons and strengths and weaknesses, and some cameras do this stuff better and some cameras do that stuff better. And if you care about your kind of photography, then you can't listen to one number score. You actually have to seek out, like, hey, I really, personally, me, I'm talking about me, I like taking photos close up of tiny little plants and animals. Macro photography is my zen hobby. I literally will roll around in the dirt to get the best shot of a dandelion that just caught my eye on a walk. And if my phone can't do that well, or if a phone that I'm reviewing can't do that well, then I'm not happy with that phone. I went to a butterfly pavilion and I was just like a pig in slop, man. Just so much fun with all these butterflies that were super patient. They would just land on a leaf and let you sit there and take photos of them until you got the perfect image of a beautiful little butterfly. If my phone can't take good close-up shots, I'm gonna be miserable fighting the phone to get that kind of shot in this wonderful little butterfly pavilion where you have a limited amount of time to walk through it. It doesn't matter to me if someone said, well, Samsung's the best image processing, because like, they don't. Like, that's such a nebulous metric. Again, it's only based on the popularity. Samsung sold more phones, so people must like Samsung cameras, is a humongous debate fallacy. Like, the iPhones sell the best, so people must like how iPhones process images. And yet, every single time we put iPhone photography up against any other premium tier phone, the iPhone very consistently loses in blind taste tests. So it's pretty rough. Oh, Zalbonic. It really is. It's actually a pretty interesting conversation photographing people with darker skin. Go to iMore, and I believe the name of the article is Skinclusion. But look up Shaka Armstrong, iMore, and you'll see a direct head-to-head. Now, there is someone else who's sort of the counterpoint to me, someone who really likes iPhone photography. I thought he brought up some good points. He's probably wrong. I mean, I feel I'm correct in my analysis. But if you really want to see a practical showdown, especially in darker conditions with people with darker skin, I think the results are startling. How bad the iPhone exposes for the tone. Like, one of the models he has is a woman who's done this really beautiful like copper and gold makeup to kind of highlight the accents in her skin. Every single iPhone shot like bleaches her out, and it's gross. And then there's a paler skinned individual with a tone of skin that's a little closer to mine, a little less red in her complexion, but some of the yellows and greens, because I'm Hispanic, I'm a Latino. And what it does to her is it completely anglicizes her. Like, it's pulling up pink in her skin that does not exist at all. It's like iPhones are whitewashing even pale-skinned individuals, and it's pretty gross. We should really not be happy about that. Oh, I'm missing a whole conversation here on it. Anyway, reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. Again, any participation, any support, anything that helps drive this mission is going to be a welcome improvement for the people that are posting some of the best content in tech right now. It doesn't have to be tech YouTube. The top posts were two photo posts, a cross post, and then a game that I hosted last year. And I don't know if I'm going to do another game this year, but you know, like there's a variety of content. Some great articles have been linked, editorials have been linked, news posts have been linked, press releases have been linked, and of course, there's a healthy and consistent stream of YouTube content. There's a lot of stuff, and you will find new content creators that you really enjoy by checking out reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. So let me get this down here and get that out of the way. Okay, so just a couple tech, because we're getting to 10:30 here already. For the gadget block, we're going to keep this week pretty simple. Another, I feel like more countries are going to bandwagon on this kind of policy. Now that the EU has pushed, we're going to see a number of other countries say, hey, yeah, we always cared about e-waste and stuff too. But India is also jumping on board saying USB Type-C charging will be mandatory for device makers from March of 2025. The Common Charger Directive will kick in 3 months after the EU for smartphones. Laptop makers have up to 2026 to comply. This was written up by Money Control. I don't know who wrote this article. I do apologize. I don't see a byline on it. Yeah, not even down at the bottom. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know who at moneycontrol.com wrote this up. But yes, the EU has a deadline of December 28th, 2024, and then India is kicking right over into March of 2025. Obviously, the main target of something like this would be Apple. The Lightning connector is bad for consumers. It's bad for accessories manufacturers. It's bad for e-waste. It's bad for the environment. There is no metric by which having a proprietary connector like the Lightning connector is good for anyone except Apple for licensing that connector so that you can also make things for iPhones. And I wrote another editorial about this. I got a bunch of really pissy comments on both the Nreal and the Rocket glasses reviews. Wouldn't you know it, the experience is not as good on iPhones because iPhones do a miserable job of supporting things like power management, data management, and display tech on the Lightning connector because it's a garbage USB 2 grade connector. And these folks would not let it go. I ended up muting 5 people in total who just, every time I would engage, it was like, well, you're misrepresenting this product. And if they said it's compatible, then the company is at fault for misrepresenting what the experience is like on an iPhone. You're like, every one of your complaints is basically, I need to defend Apple. Apple makes a garbage product, and I was told that it was the best product, and now I can't see any type of criticism against Apple. It's every accessories manufacturer who's wrong. Not Apple. Apple's not wrong. Everyone who makes things is wrong, but Apple's right. And so again, I felt stupid every single time I would comment back because occasionally you can kind of save someone. Occasionally you can lead that horse to water and they will take a drink, and it just wasn't happening here at all, which was a real bummer. But it was so frustrating. But this is the type of thing like there there's only going to be benefits for consumers when iPhones use the same cable standard as iPads. It's only going to be a benefit for consumers when accessories work. And if you've been paying attention to the iPhone landscape, it used to be new exciting accessories would be made almost exclusively for iPhones and everyone else would get the shaft. Over the last couple of years, things like audio products, they're not made Lightning connector first anymore. I've got an Apogee lav mic. The first generation of that mic only came in a Lightning connector flavor and it was never compatible with Android devices. The new version is USB-C, and they have an adapter for those poor folks who are still stuck using lightning connectors. That's the transition that we've seen. If you want to make something a good accessory and you want to make it broad and have as many people as possible buy it, if you're an Apple end, you make it for the iPad, and then it's also going to be compatible with premium Android phones. And then maybe sometimes you can make like a little clip or an adapter or something if an iPhone user wants to use it too. The iPhone is not the dominant force in this kind of sort of extended use of our gadgets. It's become kind of a joke of a basic phone. It does the phone things. It's super powerful, but you can't do much with it. It really has just kind of become a I spent a lot of money status symbol for a product. And I think Apple is going to face some significant challenges with the enthusiast side of this conversation too. The iPhone 14 Pro Max, amazing camera sensor, powerful processor. What can you do with it? Can you transfer that camera footage off of it easily? Not over wireless. No. Not over a USB 2 connector if you've got to move those great Pro RAW and Pro Res videos. You can miss me with USB 2 and sharing it. Why? No, it's silly. It really has gotten silly. Any Android manufacturer who's still trying to copy Apple's business model is going to increasingly face difficulty in that market. Oh, twin folk, preaching to the yeah, your lips to God's ears, man. You can't even plug a lightning connector flash drive to the iPhone. Meanwhile, I can transfer files to my List C rugged on any Android device, LMAO. Yeah, if you just get the USB connector kit, this is a USB flash drive. This cannot be powered by an iPhone lightning connector. The iPhone will say, we can't run the electricity to power a flash drive. Whereas on my Android devices, I keep these like 1 terabyte SSDs around so I can move files really quickly between devices and, from laptops or desktops to phones or to other products. Like I can download a bunch of stuff from my NAS, sneaker net it to this drive, transfer it to another computer, to a friend's Android phone. Like I don't need any adapters or anything. It's a USB-C product that plugs into USB-C and it works. It just works. Again, AirDrop, not the gig when you're talking about a terabyte of storage. AirDrop is not it. So yeah, it's funny. Oh, Editino is asking that SSD is super cute. So the nerd that I am, it's not just one. This is the older generation SanDisk, and then I also have the newer generation SanDisk for the faster transfer speeds. But in keeping projects stored, when the older ones started going on sale, and they are slower. The transfer speeds on the older SanDisks are a little pokey for an SSD. Again, dramatically faster than my old portable spinning disk portable hard drives. But I'm kind of up to 3 of these now where like old projects and stuff, this is what I stack. So I used to have a bank of old portable hard drives, and they were the full-sized, I shouldn't say portable, external hard drives. I used to have a stack of those external hard drives. Now I've moved over, like when I've done a bunch of work for a company and I don't want that video content taking up space on my desktop or on my NAS. If I made enough money off of that company, I buy an SSD, and now I've just got like a little stack, and I just Sharpie on the back like what's on it, and then I keep my fastest one as the real travel drive. Just a little behind the scenes insight into how I operate this hilariously, jalopy of content creation because it's funny. Oh yeah, nearby share has been working pretty well. Again, you always have the option. You can Bluetooth nearby share or go over a cable and sneaker net. Got a couple comments here talking about nearby share. It's so good. All right. So one last little story here because I want to show this off. So I don't completely know. I know we're going to get like sort of official announcements soon-ish. I don't know what's going on with the OnePlus 11 or if there's going to be a OnePlus 11 Pro. Um, it is, I think it's going to be a really anxious year for a lot of device manufacturers. I feel the international versions of phones are going to be watered down and mainstreamed. So I've got the iQOO 11. The iQOO 11 is a very powerful phone. It's got a great screen, but it has a regular optical fingerprint sensor as opposed to the new super ultrasonic Qualcomm fingerprint sensor. It's got a good main camera, but the companion cameras are just okay. But it's got like the 8 Gen 2 and the V2 coprocessor. I mean, it's like all of the guts are super powerful, but sort of the rest of the phone is a bit more mainstreamed. It's not it's not as aggressive a platform as the iQOO 9 Pro was. And I feel like something similar is going to happen to us here in the United States too. We went from the OnePlus 10 Pro to the OnePlus 10T. The OnePlus 10T whittles back on some of the sort of the complementary features of a premium tier phone, but focused on performance. So it's got the better SoC than the OnePlus 10 Pro, but there's a little less you can do with that, right? The OnePlus 10 Pro has like 4K 120 and 8K video and the higher resolution screen and all of these bells and whistles, and it's using the SoC that ran a little hotter. The OnePlus 10T runs much more efficiently, and it's a better performer, but some of that companion technology has been pulled back. There's an iQOO 11 Pro that is only being sold in China. There's the Vivos. The Vivo X90 Pro Plus currently is only being sold in China. We're not seeing the most extravagant, bleeding edge Halo products being shipped internationally. I've got the Xiaomi 12S Ultra. Xiaomi 12S Ultra never got an international release. This thing is an absolute camera monster. And again, the Vivo, Barry Johnson is in this chat, and he can tell you that Vivo X90 Pro Plus, likewise, similarly, monster camera performer. We don't have good word on when it's going to ship out. So that was a huge preamble. You want to talk about how I ramble? That was me rambling. J-Man, did we get to talking about the OnePlus 11? We're here now, buddy. So this just got posted on Twitter. I don't have any other good information on what's going on with the OnePlus strategy, but here's just a little quick clip of the OnePlus 11 being held. It's got a circular rear camera assembly, but with sort of the same ceramic cutout that we saw on the OnePlus 10 Pro. It is hyper glossy. So this is the green version, and it is reflecting every single light and edge light and reflection of a reflection. And I keep trying to see, I think it's a OnePlus 9 that they're shooting the video on. It looks like it might be a OnePlus 9. Not even a 9 Pro. It looks like it just might be a OnePlus 9 that's taking the video of this. But it's in front of an Oppo banner, because we know Oppo and OnePlus are much more closely linked than they have been in times past. And it looks like a OnePlus. I'm trying to see. It looks like it does have the volume switch. So the alert rocker is on this phone. And I think what we're going to see, at least for the first half of the year, is a blurring of the lines between the numbered phone and the Pro phone. So that's kind of what we got on the iQOO 11. The iQOO 11 is not a Pro. It has the camera sensors that you would expect on the more mainstream version, the non-Pro version. But it does have the V2 coprocessor. It has the 8 Gen 2, so we expect that to be a crazy good performer. It's got the wicked fast, super fast. This is 120 watt charging, I believe. Someone please correct me in the comments if I have that one wrong. I can't just memorize all the specs like I used to. And then it's got the newest version of our super fast AMOLED. So 144 hertz refresh rate, a brighter panel, newer generation, and even though it's a flat screen, it's not curved glass, it is the higher resolution. So usually when we get the mainstreamed phone, you get the 1080p resolution. This is 1440. Handling the iQOO 11 non-Pro, I kind of feel this is similar to what we'll get in the OnePlus 11. Not exact. OnePlus and Oppo are sort of firewalled from Vivo and iQOO. Those two companies are both sort of under the BBK umbrella, but they don't work directly with each other. OnePlus got absorbed by Oppo. iQOO was a sub-brand of Vivo, and they make different devices from similar collection of parts. But there's a philosophy there that makes a lot of sense. Instead of releasing a OnePlus 11 and a OnePlus 11 Pro, what if we simplified the OnePlus 11 Pro and just released it as a OnePlus 11? And I think that's what we might end up with, is a phone that kind of mixes and matches some of the higher performance pieces with some of the more mainstream fun features like camera tech. That's my hypothesis. That's my guess, is that what we'll see is something that's not a OnePlus 11. It's nicer than a OnePlus. Let me break that all down again. It's nicer than a OnePlus 11 would have been, but it's not quite a OnePlus 11 Pro. It's like a OnePlus 11 missing link between those two theoretical phones. Super, super clumsy. But I am kind of looking forward to see what they do, because I think this is also going to represent something of a transition year. My dream, my hope, would be OnePlus 11 in the first half of the year, and then as a refresh, in the second half of the year, we get like a OnePlus 11T Pro. Because we played with that kind of stuff before in the past. Like there were different distribution arrangements for the OnePlus 7. Like there was the OnePlus 7, which didn't come to the United States. We got the 7 Pro, and then later we got the 7T, but internationally there was a 7T Pro that we didn't get here in the United States. And I think we could do something like that again with the OnePlus 11. Sell at aggressively low prices. We know that Oppo is using the OnePlus label as sort of now an experimental phone division. And we talked about it, I think, on Best of Our Week. We talked about how like the positioning of OnePlus is almost zero margin. So they're going to make almost nothing on the phones, but then to kind of encourage carrier deals, sort of getting people into the platform and into the ecosystem, and then hopefully you can also sell them like a pair of earbuds or something along with that, that kind of helps make some money but gets people invested in what this new OnePlus Oppo arrangement really looks like. And I think that's going to be the first step. The OnePlus 11 is going to be the first step in that journey, a streamlined OnePlus. It's kind of just a label for Oppo to sell in other regions than where Oppo traditionally sells. And we'll get a sense of where the two companies, where the company's going to go after that. Oh, J-Man, I don't hate the sensor. I think it kind of looks like an old Lumia. J-Man says, I hate the sensor now in the back as it looks like a Mi 11 Ultra or a Reno device. I kind of like the circle look. I mean, I don't have it here in front of me. Like, obviously I've been holding up the Xiaomi, but also the Honor. The Honor is behind me on the bookshelf and I don't want to go digging for it because I think I just put it back in a wrapper. The Honor had that sort of circle cutout, and I kind of like this offset ceramic. So if I pull out my OnePlus 10 Pro, this cutout right here, I think is kind of a unique look for the back of a phone. It's a shiny ceramic. This should be more durable than glass. We're having some issues even with Pixel 7 Pros. Some people are finding that more aggressive use on a Pixel 7 Pro can start to crack these back glass elements, having something bridging your camera sensors that's not glass, ceramic is a real good choice. We even saw on the Note 22, they got rid of the domino because the domino was cracking. You can't have glass across all of your camera sensors. So changing this from a square sort of side piece to a circle cutout, I think is fine. I think it looks pretty good. And it's one of those that the more I used the OnePlus 10 Pro, the more I sort of liked, like, okay, it's not radical, but it is a distinct design element that looks like a OnePlus and doesn't look like anything else. And I've sort of appreciated that. Same thing, Vivo X80 also has a circle cutout. In a more sort of rectangular panel, there's a circle of camera tech that has a ceramic backplate on that too. So I think if that's going to be sort of the look for BBK brands, that helps it stand out from other phones. I kind of like it. I kind of like the look of it. Um, let's see. I like Brian Glaze. All of these. It's the 11 plus. It's the One Plus 11T. One plus 11 is 12. It's a simple math problem, guys. If you have the One Plus 11, it's a 12. Oh, Dave Burns, I know, man. But One Plus betrayed me. They sold phones at competitive prices and stopped being flagship killers and just started becoming regular premium phones. So I am betrayed. Dave Burns, I was so betrayed I bought my phone again. So I'm this is a I'm trying to wrap my brain around how this editorial can work. Um, I'm a big proponent of right to repair, but Dave Burns had exactly the kind of experience that gives us all pause when we talk about repairing phones, where his OnePlus 9 Pro, he broke the screen and he sent it in to get a repair, and the estimate that he got back was dramatically more expensive than buying another OnePlus 9 Pro. And it's really difficult to advocate for repairing gadgets when these products become so cheap and disposable that it doesn't make economic sense to repair the gadget. And it wasn't like, oh, well, it was going to be a little bit more expensive than buying a used OnePlus 9 Pro on Swappa. I mean, it was demonstrably more expensive than buying a lightly used OnePlus 9 Pro to replace it. And that's heartbreaking. That's really difficult. How do we talk to family and friends? How do we talk to gadget consumers and say, like, hey, it really matters that you can repair your phone? Also, Samsung's going to fire sale their phones 2 months after they launch them. You know, like that's really tough. Oh, you always get such great deals on Samsung. Well, that means they're not holding their value, and that also means that the long-term valuation is going to plummet even further, and it also means that your repair costs are going to skyrocket in comparison to how much it costs to buy a new Samsung on some kind of crazy sale. That is such a messy back and how do you address that? How do you fix it? It's so tough. So, yeah. But on the flip side, on the other side of this, I've been using the iQOO 11. I've been having really good experiences with the iQOO 11. I kind of feel like we're going to be in for a treat on a OnePlus 11. I mean, seeing this leak here, just watching it get sort of held and sort of turned around, and it looks like it's going to be a solid phone. I'll be real curious to see how they handle their launch. I hope I can get my hands on one to play with it. I did not. I've been having sort of back and forths with the OnePlus PR team. I was so swamped, I completely missed their message on like the OnePlus 10T, and I never got my hands on the OnePlus 10T. TK was playing with the OnePlus 10T. While he was covering the OnePlus 10T, I was trying to work the iQOO 9T. Like we were working like cousins of different phones back and forth, and like the features were similar enough. I didn't ever follow up with them on the OnePlus 10T. I don't I need to not focus exclusively on phones that Americans can't buy. Like, I have the iQOO 11 and I really thought like, well, maybe I'll just run that. You know what? No. I really should get the phone that's going to sell here in the United States. So I've been chatting with the folks at OnePlus PR, and hopefully they welcome me back. I'm hoping I can spend some time with a review unit, even if it's a loaner. Again, I also need to not keep every single phone that I review. Even that would be totally fine. It's just kind of funny, you know, like the back and forth that happens behind the scenes on all this stuff and just not knowing. I just don't know what's going to go on with OnePlus. I'm hoping I at least am able to jump on a video call and get like a pre-brief, because it would just be nice to know and be able to talk about it even if I don't get the device in my hands. Really silly stuff. Silly stuff that happens behind the scenes at all of your favorite tech publications. Um, let's see. Raymond, if you had an LG phone, what brand would you switch to? Okay, there is no one good answer. It depends on why you liked your LG phone. If you liked your LG phone for Screen Plus and stylus support, then I would seriously keep an eye on Motorola, because your other choice is a Moto or the Note 22. Never, ever, ever let Samsung call the S22 Ultra an S22. The S22 phones were garbage. The Note 22 was one of the best phones of 2022. They have nothing to do with each other. They are not similar to each other. They share none of the same parts or components or pieces, not the same screens, not the same cameras. The Note 22 has an S Pen silo. If it quacks like a Note, and it walks like a Note, and it waddles and swims like a Note, it's a Note. And Notes are awesome. The S22 was miserable. You can find so many better phones for cheaper, even with Samsung radically devaluing the S22 and S22 Plus. I digress. If you liked LGs for productivity, check out Moto and look at a Note 22. If you liked LGs for media, you're kind of stuck. I don't know, did anyone confirm? Did the ROG 6 have an ESS DAC? Because if you liked LG for the quad DAC, then your only solution might be an ROG, like going hardcore gaming phone just to get that headphone DAC back. Or you got to go portable. Like, I really love some of the newer Bluetooth and wireless DACs. That was a FIO. That's the BTR7. That thing's a monster. And then I really liked the iFi Griffin. Again, this is a big chunk if you wanted to keep it in a pocket, but this is an absolutely brilliant premium audiophile portable experience. It's stunning. But that's what you've got to carry if you want to replace the quad DAC from an LG. And other things too, like if you liked the V60 for dual display support, nothing. You got to go to a folding phone or to a Duo, and neither of those really scratch the itch of what the Velvet and the V60 did well. So you've got to pick and choose. There isn't one phone that does this stuff great. If you liked LG for their camera tech, I think Vivo is the spiritual successor to LG. The way that Vivo lays out their camera app and the fact that their camera app is kind of messy but super functional, I would definitely lean Vivo as a replacement for LG camera tech. But that's the flow chart, you know, the complications of desktop modes, stylus support, dual display support, audio and premium entertainment, and and camera tech. No one phone can scratch that itch from having an LG V60. There, you miss out on something walking away from LG. Let's see. I'm way behind on the chat. We're going to use these last couple minutes here if there are any other questions, and then we can kind of wrap up this show. The first show of 2023. I know we've got some fun stuff coming up. CES is right around the corner, but I feel like CES is going to be a lot of lifestyle tech this year. We'll probably see some cool stuff with TVs. And we'll probably see some cool stuff with automotive, especially with more companies making EVs. I know a lot of companies are going to talk about sustainability, but until I see practical differences in how they manufacture and handle product distribution, that's probably not going to be huge. What? Oh, digital health. You know, like health tech, I think will probably take off. We saw legislation that allowed for over-the-counter hearing aids. I bet you that's a topic that's going to be really heavy at CES. Tons of fitness trackers and like health trackers and things like that. Obviously, that's always hot at CES. But I think we're probably going to start seeing even more durable medical equipment that more organically connects to computers and smartphones. That's always the trickiest part. Get something FDA approved. It is very difficult to make that broad. So that's one advantage like you might have for a Galaxy or for an iPhone is that it's really easy to approve like a Bluetooth connection to diabetes management to an iPhone because then you only have to get approvals from the FDA for one operating system on one phone. But we're starting to see where that's opening up a bit more for things like the Pixel. The Pixel 7 here in the United States is now on that list where you're starting to see more support kind of creeping up. So when it comes to like mobile and smartphones and gadgets and computers, I think CES is going to be a little weak this year, but I think the integration with our products is going to be really high in these conversations. If it's VR, if it's AR, if it's automotive tech, if it's health tech, if it's, you know, metaverse or whatever we're calling second life these days, I think that's where we're going to see some of those conversations really spark up with CES. Sorry, I'm way behind on chat. There are people talking about iPhone locks again and Hugh Jeffries. Let's see. Umar Assam is saying, okay, it does have an ESS DAC, so I guess the ROG 6 is still the last holdout for a good DAC. I'll take it back. Sony is the best for audio production, and Asus is the best. The ROG, not Asus. The ROG phone is the best for audio consumption. So if you want to replace that quad DAC from an LG, you you got to go to a gaming the only gaming phone that still has it left. Gormlord, speaking of phones we can't buy, the Find N2, it looks great. I'd also take a slab phone with that aspect ratio and size. Again, I'm being, you know, like if I'm saying I want to replace the dual display on a V60, I mean, if you want to import, yeah, the Vivo foldable and the Oppo foldables look awesome. And they're in aspect ratios that I think are more practical than Samsung's fold. And I think they fold in the right direction. I still think Samsung has picked the wrong orientation for their folded size. So it's kind of tricky, you know? Like, I don't think dual display ever really got the credit that it deserved because I've got a V60 back there that is in a case. If you drop the V60 in its case, you do lose your dual display, but it still protects your phone. You don't have to add an additional case to that. It's got a larger surface area at a higher pixel density, at a higher resolution and pixel density than the open display on the Samsung Fold, and it's smaller. So when you fold it closed, it is thinner. In a case with two screens, it is thinner than the naked hinge of the Z Fold 4. So if you want to protect your Z Fold, you have to add bulk. The V60 already has the bulk. It's thinner than the Fold. Anyone who was writing off dual display was terrible at tech. The dual display productivity was phenomenal. The game controller was phenomenal. The extended keyboard, going landscape keyboard, if you had old slider keyboard phones like I did, especially back to the Pocket PC days, was phenomenal. It's really sad that no other company, you know, has tried to do a specialty case with a second screen like LG did. Because there's a huge benefit to that. You can have a regular phone when you want it, and you can have a second screen when you need it. It really is brilliant, and it's a shame that we're replacing it with bendy plastic fragile screens that are harder to protect. It's a cooler, techier solution, but it's really not more practical, especially if you're like me and you're constantly using multiple apps at the same time. So it's a shame. When we lost LG, we lost a lot. Dave Burns. Sustainability to me means more convoluted ways to lie about destroying the environment. They're buying so many more carbon offsets while they're also doing stock buybacks to increase shareholder profitability. Oh, Zalbotnik. Yeah, this is going to be really tricky. Right. Apparently, a lot of those Chinese EV companies aren't solvable or are expected to be bought or go bankrupt. The very impressive Lucid is one of them. I wouldn't be terribly surprised in the next 5 to 8 years if even Tesla ends up being optioned by another sort of traditional automobile brand for all of their valuation. What their real investment is, what their real value is a network of charging infrastructure that if it got bought out would be a huge crown jewel win for whoever would option that company. It's less how they make their cars, more how they support a charging infrastructure. And they got out ahead of the curve, and that's huge. That is an amazing business position to be in. But when I look at traditional car companies making EVs, they're becoming exceedingly more desirable to me. Marie and I are seriously looking at saving up over 2023 to then start the process of shopping an EV in 2024. Right now, we don't have a car payment, and we want to run that as long as we can. Our two cars are little beater Nissans, and at some point, we want to get something not nice, but something a little bit better than a Nissan Versa. And so I'm seriously looking now, as much as I would look at like a Tesla Model 3, I'm also seriously looking at Hyundais. And those Hyundais look real nice. So again, it would be very surprising to me if a small sort of disruptor company was able to survive once GM, Ford, Hyundai, Kia, when those companies start manufacturing at scale and they can bring all of the manufacturing and distribution advantages to building cars to the EV space. That's going to be real tough for a small little player to act like they could be another Tesla. And Lucid will end up being one of those companies. It's my prediction, and I don't offer stock advice or investing advice. It would be my prediction that Lucid's tech will get bought out by a company like Kia. And then if anything of Lucid survives, it's just sort of the DNA of what made a Lucid kind of fun. I'm way behind on the chat again. Great things. So people talking about Dragonfly DACs, those DACs are great. Now I just went more FIO. I just have the most experience with FIO. I've just really enjoyed. Like I've got the FIO Q, the BTR5, the BTR7, but then iFi came in swinging, and that Griffin is just a monster player. So it's really it's really good. It's really good. Oh, some fun stuff from folks just memorializing. I went to full Brokaw on that. Kuala Lumpur, memorializing LG. The Tech Boy one. I hear shilling for larger tech companies pays well. You could buy a nice car. Then I've got to do my EV video, right? Look, I am such a successful YouTuber that I have bought a Tesla. Hey TK. So I'm laying it out there. My big flex for 2023 is likely going to be e-bikes. I'm not looking to add an EV to my lineup right now. I'm going pretty serious on pedals, bicycling. That's going to be a bit bigger. And also, I feel like less liberal guilt over pedal power over like in anyway another combustion engine vehicle. You know, oh, and Jeff coming in right at the end, buddy. Damn, I'm late. Stupid work meetings. Getting them bills paid. How dare they? Did you bring it up during the meeting that I was streaming a podcast? I feel like that should have mattered, especially in your current line of work. Like, I'm sorry, I can't do this meeting. I've got a buddy. He's doing a podcast. I need to add a view. So, folks, oh, Brian Glaze, we'll end 2023 with the same sentiment that we've been using for LG for the last almost 3 years. We'll pour one out for poor LG. I believe the Velvet is getting its Android 13 update, so be on the lookout for that. I might need to make another video on a dual display LG in 2023. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. Yes, see, Jeff, this is the right way to do it, buddy. I told him we got to wrap this up because JC is live. I need to go. I need to leave myself of your present company. This meeting could have been an email goodbye. So, folks, Happy New Year. I'm really stoked to have had some fun over the last year and to kick off 2023 with a great group of nerds. You're all my favorite nerds, and we'll definitely be sharing a bit more. And I say we specifically in that, a couple other content creator pals of mine, we've got ideas, and it's really hard to work on those ideas in sort of like a little mini vacuum of just your own sphere of influence. Like if I experiment too much, it harms the sort of channel and relationships and social media that I've built. But at the same time, something really does need to change. It's needed to change for a while. And I feel like the best way to do that is going to be to share a little bit more of how all of this stuff works behind the scenes and how we're all personally affected by it. So a part of that is going to become more public on all of my blogs and channels and Patreons and all of that. But it's only through that kind of public experimentation do I think I'll be able to land what the sustainable future of this conversation, what it really looks like. So again, jumping into a podcast like this, being able to kind of goof out, being able to kind of goof around and talk about some nerdy, some geeky tech news it really means a lot to me, and it's going to be sort of my place of calm, my safe space for the year is kicking off every week, being able to have this kind of chat with you fine folks. So Happy New Year. I hope you were able to do something fun for actual New Year's Eve. Even if it was just what Marie and I did, where we watched an old movie and we fell asleep at like 11:50. Like we technically made it to the ball drop, but we didn't watch the ball drop. And then hopefully you're able to catch up with some old friends, with some family members, spend time with people who care about you. And for me, it's always about eating. If you've got some good food in front of you, really enjoy those leftovers. And I will catch you all next week. We'll be doing some CES conversating. I think we'll be just into the wrap up of CES this year, isn't it? This like starting up like right now. I think there's a PR person who's like already taking meetings in Vegas for pre-briefs and stuff. So hopefully, the folks out there who are traveling, that you have safe travels. I think if you're going, please keep your head down. Arm yourself with buckets of hand sanitizer, get the best masks. It's so much worse than when I just used to get the flu at CES in years past. And then we'll catch it back. I believe TK is going to be heading out for a little while too. So there's going to be plenty of boots on the ground, delivering really good content on what the trends this year are at CES. And we're going to be following up on all that over the next week or two. So, he dropped out of CES. I'm sorry, Jeff. I didn't realize that you'd pulled the plug because I ended up booking work. I had plans to go to CES for like 2 days, and then I got a job where I was like, I guess I kind of need to stay. And instead of spending money to go to CES, I'm going to stay at home and hopefully make a little money that will help pay my mortgage. So, folks, thank you. I want you all to have an amazing year, and that starts this week. I want you to have an incredible week. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to be awesome with your technology. And I'll catch you all back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the STGQA podcast channel. Be safe. Take care of yourself so you can take care of others. I love you all. I'll catch you back.